Well, thanks everyone for again joining today. And it's our last one before Thanksgiving. We're going to skip a week next week due to the holiday. And we have Nick Coyote on today, a fellow SCTC member. He was actually in Reno, and he's got a lot of stuff about Stir Shaken today. And interestingly, we are going through that exact process with a client right now. So, we've heard of Stir Shaken, of course, before. But Nick's going to give us some updates on it as well as some best practices. So we're looking forward to Nick sharing. So here, let me just share my screen here. Here we go.
I can share my screen if
Yeah, not yet, not yet. Hold
oh,
on.
okay.
Yeah, I'll let you do that in a few minutes. Hold on one second here. Um, oh, here we go. So I'm going to blow it up for you, and here we go. It's taking a minute. So, yep. So today is all about Start Shaking and what to do about fraudulent and robocalls this year into next year. So, again, Nick's going to cover some basics as well as giving some best practices and some recommendations. And we're pleased to have Nick on the call today. Thank you, Nick, ahead of time.
Sure.
So, I've got a couple of polling questions today because it's like one of those topics that you kind of know and don't know. So, I actually have a few polling questions, assuming that I can get the polling working. So here. I'm going to launch number one here. And so what does STIR Shaken stand for? A secure telephony identity regulation, signature-based handling of asserted information using tokens, secure telephony identity revisited, or finally, spam telecom identification reduction. And believe it or not, I did not know the answer to this. As
You're
knowledgeable as I am.
you're stealing my thunder. Yes, I have that in there.
So it's interesting. I'll let everybody vote, but the answer could be potentially different than what you think. Um, so Nick, how long have you been, as we're doing this, how long have you been aware of stir shaking?
Um, Probably a year and a half.
Yeah, wow. Okay, cool. Okay. Well, here, let me end the poll. Let me share it with everybody. Thanks everybody for voting. Why does this take so long? Okay, and I can share the results. Okay, so you can see here A wins, followed by B, followed by D, followed by C, and believe it or not, the answer is C. Secure telephone identity revisited. I was shocked. So let me stop the share. Let me go to number two here. And again, my computer's just a little bit slow, so just give me a second here. So number two is
You got to upgrade from that Heath kit.
yeah, or my trash shady, right? Which entity is responsible for overseeing Stir Shaken framework and managing the policies for digital certificates? Is it A, FCC, B, the IETF, C, the STI Governance Authority, or D, U.S. Telecom Tracebook Group? Please vote. And again, it might be different than you think. Dave Clark, are you back in Georgia?
Yeah, I got back late Friday night.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. Okay, I'm just waiting for a couple of other votes here. And let me end the poll here. Thanks, everybody. And I'll share the results. Come on, share the results. And you can see that the winner here is the FCC, followed by number two, IETF, followed by the STI, GA, and none for number four. And believe it or not, the answer is number three, Secure Telephone Identity Governance Authority. I did not know that either. So thanks for that. And as long as I can keep this computer going, hold on. I'm going to give you a third one here. So this one says, um, does Stir Shaken stop all robocalls and improper spam labeling? Yes, a complete solution. B, no, it only authenticates. C, yes, once a carrier is compliant. D, no, only applies to international calls, not domestic. Please vote. And it's interesting how sophisticated this gets, which again, Nick will share some of those insights, of course, today. See, Nick, I'm promising a lot for you today.
Okay, I'll see if I can deliver.
Let me share the results. Come on, come on. One more. And the answer here looks like it's B, overwhelmingly by the majority. And sure enough, it is B, public key cryptography and digital certificates. Oh, shit, that's not it. What technology? Oh, Distor shaken. Oh, okay. No, it's not. Yeah, it is number two. Sorry about that. Hold on. Let me stop the
And
share.
I'll dive a little deeper into these.
Okay, good. Okay. And let me just do one more. Sorry, I had these mixed up a little bit. That's what it was. Okay. And the last one here, that's what it was.
You should ask, how does James Bond like his martinis?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And what technology does StirShaken use to verify the caller's identity? SS7, cryptography and digital certificates, which I kind of gave it away, or consumer feedback and call volume analytics or call blocking. And I promise this is the last of it. And by the way, if any of the answers are wrong, just blame it on AI hallucinations, okay? It has nothing to do with me. Okay, and I'll just wait one more minute. All right, thanks everyone. And I will share the results as soon as this pops up. And here we go. So you can see here that B wins. And yeah, I kind of gave it away from the earlier question. So it is B, public key cryptography and digital certificates. So again, Nick will share that. So thanks everybody for voting today and sharing your thoughts. And a big thank you to DK last week from TMC. He did a great job on voice communications risks and threats and really talked a lot about, which resonated with myself personally, where we could walk in and do a security assessment for data and for voice. And I forget what the stats were, but I think a full, what was it, 20%, even higher of all um, network security assessments do not include voice, something crazy like that. Okay. So he presented kind of a holistic version of everything. Also, what I found very interesting was their strategy as TMC uh, basically charges a what we would call a nominal rate in between the 15 to 25K marker for an assessment, which basically will get you in the door as a consultant that will also get you at a point where it's a director level or above for that kind of fee. So it's a great way to get into a potential new client who is talking about that. And of course, then once you're in the door, it's amazing how you can find things that clients really need you for well beyond just the initial engagement. So a big thank you to DK for that last week. I found this, I thought it was very appropriate today. Spam will be dead in 24 months. Does anybody want to guess who stated that and when? Anybody? And it was not Nick, just to let you know. It was actually Bill Gates in 2004. How correct he was. And here we are 11 years later, and it's a bigger issue than it ever was before. So anyway, a big thank you to all who have been contributing on the SCTC Fireside Chats. A happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Again, note that we are off next week on the 26th. Okay, let me keep going. So again, we've got Nick Colodi on this week, and he's going to really give us some great insights around Stir Shaken. Dave, over to you.
Well, thanks, Steve. And you stole my thunder. I just wanted to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving and holiday season. As we get into the holiday season, it's a great time to renew your memberships. If you're having difficulty getting an invoice or doing it online, performing it online, just reach out to myself or anybody that's a member of the executive committee. We'll be glad to assist you in getting your invoice and getting you teed up for 2026. As we all know, it's looking out to be a exciting year. And we've had a lot of growth this year, and I can only imagine what 2026 is going to look like. So I'll be attending this one a week from now from Germany. So it'll be 6 o'clock at night, 2 weeks from now, Steve, when we come back. So be
How
patient
do
with
you
me.
handle these time differences? I was watching the NFL in London, right, last week, and it's like, how do these players handle the time differences, right?
You have to stay awake the first day. That's the key.
Oh, okay. Thank you
Force
for that.
yourself to stay awake.
Thank you. And our president, Bill, he actually had a conflict today. He texted me earlier, but he did send me a small greeting. So he shared wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you spend quality time with your family and take a moment to reflect. I am deeply thankful for everyone at the SCTC as we move towards 2026, which promises to be both rewarding and challenging. It's important that we take this time to recharge, which I totally agree. So I should have done a poll. How many of us are taking off next Friday? I think that just about the entire world is, right? Okay, so Nick, I'm going to stop my share. I'm going to give you the screen that you can share, okay?
Okay.
Oh, and Fran, happy hour. I'm sorry. Why don't you share that? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, that'll be next week. You need to enjoy it with your family because of course, we'll be having turkey and having a great time. So, no happy hour next week. We'll skip. But if you do need help with invoices, you're welcome to email headquarters, and I'll help as much as I can.
Thank you, Fran. Really appreciate that.
So can
Okay, Nick.
everybody see my screen?
Yep.
So yeah, I couldn't resist. I had to put the latest James Bond in there. So just a little recap what we're going to do. What is Stir Shaken? Why we're using it? How it works. We'll go into some nuts and bolts. Challenges that we have in the PSTN today. And where are we with implementation? That changes on a daily basis, as does the regulatory landscape that I can touch on. That at our last conference, I did get an update on that also, and becoming an approved CERT authority. So that's how we'll wrap it up. So just keep track of my time so I don't babble, and then this is an open conversation. So any questions or comments, just feel free as we move along.
Sounds good.
I think it's pretty obvious as to why we need this. The problem with robocalls and nuisance calls and deception, especially with older folks like me, they get calls and get sucked into some fraudulent type of scheme. And the FCC has been asking, encouraging, pushing for a way for the industry to address this since 2013. So that's what happened with the telecom industry. They came up with Stir Shaking, and this is and I didn't realize myself until doing a little research what it was used for or what it stood for. So it's Secure Telephony Identity Revisit, secure handling of asserted information with tokens, right? Kind of a long one. I don't know if they thought of James Bond and backed in words to put into place, or it just happened to be, but that's what Stir Shaken stands for. So it does use digital certs, public key encryption to verify phone calls. You'll see if you're familiar with LNP, you'll see a little bit of association between that as to how that information is traversed. It only is for SIP. It doesn't work in the SS7 network, and we'll get into some issues that arise as that interop becomes a problem. So key information, the calling number, called numbers, the current timestamp, the attestation level, and I'll explain that a little further as we go through the slides, and then the origination identifier. And if you look at it, it's basically a GUID for that call. So there are 3 levels of attestation. Basically, how good is your certificate? Attestation level A means that that carrier has their own certificate, understands and knows all of the calls traversing their network, originating from their network, and they are taking responsibility for those calls as not to be robocalls or fraudulent. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't have any customers, ACD platforms that use outbound dialing that are legitimate, and that is up to them to manage and police. But it doesn't eliminate dialers completely, just the ones that are the auto dialers and those that are looking for trouble. Level B, that means you don't have the certificate, but you're working with a carrier that does have certificates, and they will allow you to use one of their certificates on your behalf. So A and B are used quite often. C, gateway attestation, doesn't know the carrier and cannot identify them. Often these calls are rejected. It's either a 503, and there is one other code that you'll see, which is for failed authentication. I think it's a 437. But those are the codes that you could see. Yes, 437 is verification call, so but failed. So those are the two you would most likely see when that occurs. To explain further on attestation levels, where you get them, there is a cloud-based platform where these certs can be gotten, or you can house them locally. Similar to LNP, you can go to the INPAC and in real time, or you can get a snapshot and keep it locally. So if your attestation cert is kept locally, simply insert it into the header and send it just like any other call. If you're going to need to go get it, you'll use that's a 403 redirect. I think it's 403. It explains it further in here, but you do need to use a redirect to get that and apply it. So those are the two methods that are used. Also, if at any stage of the game, the call needs to be forwarded, so it gets to the, let's say it gets to the end user, and then that call is forwarded, you need to put your certificate in the header too. So when it gets to the other end, it should ultimately have at least two certificates, right? The one from the original call and the one from the call being forwarded to. So when you see that, there'll be more than one. As to its legitimacy, if at least one of them comes back successful, the call is considered valid, but you will see multiple along the way. And technically, each leg of the call, each carrier, even the intermediate carriers, are supposed to authenticate that cert. They're not, at least not yet, where this is like moving a battleship, so things can go a little slower. But in the beginning, the originator and the terminator, they're ultimately responsible for this from a liability standpoint too. So here's a little bit of the nuts and bolts. So there is a authentication service. This is the one on the originating end that you can go to. This one uses a 302 redirect. Like I mentioned, you don't need to if you have it in your system already and it's your cert. There's no need to go out and query that. Services do charge, just like LNP, on a per dip basis. So there is a cost associated with that. When it gets to the terminating end, the cert is verified through the certificate repository of, and there's several of them. New Star is one, for instance, but you can become an authority and provide that information to validate those certs. I won't go through this step by step, but we'll have the slides there for you to go through these. So, and I know we're running low on time, so I want to go through
No, no,
this a
no,
little
no,
quicker.
we go to the top of the hour. We go to one.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, then I'll slow down like I haven't drank 4 cups of coffee.
Please.
But the call does have to have this in the SIP header. These messages are getting quite large now, but with today's bandwidth, there isn't an issue with the size of the headers, but they can grow depending on how many times a call is forwarded, and they're supposed to be anyway at this stage of the game verified for each leg along the way. I will say though that mobile carriers, 2 things, they're all SIP. And so there's not much of an interop issue. And 2, they do a very good job at the cert. You wouldn't think they would from, I don't know about you, but as many, calls that I get wanting to check my roof or sell me something, you would think that it isn't, but we're still in the infancy of this. So as things move on, it'll get better. There are, and I'll get into it in a bit, there are ways you can bypass this. This is only for the US, and there is ways you can circumvent that are being addressed.
Mm-hmm.
So interop. I remember when I was teaching SS7, so I'm showing my age a little bit, but interop between SIP and legacy systems like SS7, there's still a lot of legacy systems in the core network, although we do see that changing. But still, the core PSTN network, a lot of it is legacy. So since this only works with SIP, you can't put a SIP header in a TCAP message. Once that occurs, then you lose all track of that call from a authentication standpoint. So carriers are just ignoring that, and they just, it came in SS7, it's interop, and we're going to let it go. Ignoring an attestation level of C or non-existent, and inserts valid for too long. I do have in here that they've gone to 30 days for the certificates to be valid. I found out this morning that has changed. So you can see there's a lot of flux in this. But one thing that the FCC is hammering hard on is even if there's interop issues, even if it's a level C, when it gets to the terminating end, that last carrier has to take responsibility for it. So change it to a level B or A, but they are liable for that call if it's fraudulent and is challenged. Certs now valid for 30 days. That's not right anymore. So what the industry at this point has decided to keep it what it is currently, and the cert is good for a year. That is kind of long, especially if you think about ways that you can circumvent or spoof or take someone's cert and use that fraudulently. I think the reason why is because they're working on auto renew, and it's software. I think it's Acme Auto Renew. So they won't even have to worry about when it expires. It'll just automatically be renewed. For the first time, though, you do have to go through all the manual legwork to get verified. And then once you're verified, you get a cert. And then from that point on, it can be done automatically. Obviously, there's fees associated with this, just like anything else when it comes to extra information in the PSTN network, but it will be done automatically. And in that time, they'll go to something much more frequent. The intent is to go to 24 hours, but right now it is a year. Then they'll go to 30 days, and then finally every hour. Actually, the FCC is the ultimate authority for stir shaking. They do set the standards and mandates for moving forward, albeit slow and maybe not in sync with the carriers, but they do hammer this, or have been up until recently. The current administration, which I found in our last conference, has decided to soften the mandates for the carrier. It is in flux. There's nothing etched in stone yet. However, from what I see with the carriers that I work with, they are still moving forward with this, because they know at some point it's going to be mandated. And since they've already got the ship turning, there's a lot of them are moving forward with the mandates.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to become an approved CERT authority, like iConnective, Nuance, or excuse me, Newstar, and there's probably half a dozen of them now. There is a long process you need to go through for that to happen, to occur. And once you're authority, you can request certificate from the master system, and then they can be delved out. Again, you can, for those that have an attestation level cert of A, and they want to give that to carriers that they work with, they can do that, and that becomes an attestation level B. Another change I didn't get a chance to do because it happened this morning, it's not on that 30-day frequency. So this is iConnect. If you go on there and you want to become a CERT authority, this is just a snapshot of what you need to go through for the formal process. I did attempt to go through it myself for a carrier for practice. It's quite extensive. It's not something that you can do in a day, but you can go through this if you feel that you want to become an authority for certificates.
And what's the benefit for being an authority there, Nick?
Well, for one thing, there's a revenue stream associated with it, by delving out the certificates. And then you have a database that houses those. And if you're going to be going back to this slide, let me just go back. Okay. So there's you would have the certificate repository. And every time a dip occurs, there's a charge like an LNP dip for that. So there's a revenue stream to be associated with that when you become an authority.
Got it.
I realize I went through that a little quickly, but if you've got any comments or questions, let me know.
So I got a couple. So number one is, again, we deal less with the carriers as far as customers go, right? We deal more or less with enterprises, right? So from your vantage point, Nick, what would you look to do, or what would you recommend, either as some talking points or some kind of plan around, how does an enterprise handle stir shaking?
Yes. First off, they all have, if it's a call center, their ACD provider has a carrier. If they have their own PBX, be it prem-based or cloud-based, they're interconnecting with a carrier. They need to know from that carrier what attestation level they have, especially if they have a lot of outbound calls. They don't want to get an attestation level of C or non-existent, because those calls are now more and more being blocked, similar to calls being disconnected with, I think they end up with a 503. If you forward a call that came in from a TFN, a toll-free number, and the toll-free number is in the P-asserted identity.
Mm-hmm.
When that call gets forwarded, it will fail. And the reason why it failed is because they need a number to bill, and that's in the P-asserted identity. So you can't bill an 800 number. So you'll run into similar things like that, right? And I run into that with call center issues all the time, where the call is forwarded to an external source and it disconnects, and that 9 times out of 10 is the issue. You'll see similarities with this if there is no attestation level applied. I do work with some of the ACD providers, and depending on which carrier they go to, they may or may not apply that. So that is something to watch out for. If you start getting those 437 or 503 block numbers and you contact your carrier, ask them what attestation level you're applying to it. It's very important that they do that on the originating end. Because once it goes to the intermediate carrier, they don't care. They're just going to send it through. And then the terminating carrier doesn't see anything unless they're one of your customers and you have a tight relationship with them, they are going to fail that call.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the important things to worry about from our standpoint when you're working with your customers, that make sure they're aware of that. An enterprise customer doesn't need to get a cert, right? It's at the carrier level, but they all have to connect to a carrier one way or the other, either on their PBX or via their ACD provider, or if they're using BYOC. So they would need to be at least savvy enough to talk at a high level with them and mention what is the attestation level. And if your carrier says what you're talking about, then that should raise a red flag.
So for customer and enterprises doing a lot of outbound calling, right? They have
Yes.
to have specific, especially if it's consumers, right? If it's B2C, how do they handle the consent for calls, back to, through this mechanism called stir shaking? Do they have to do anything specific, Nick?
No. Like, are you talking maybe about TCPA compliance?
Yeah, or just the fact that that they have obtained a list of all consumer numbers and they have consent to call them.
No. It'd be transparent to that. Now,
Okay.
if the numbers are large, they do need to check with their carrier to make sure that they're allowed to send out so many calls per minute.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on the use case for this. If it's for instance, if it's a preview dial, they'll send a call out. If the customer answers, it goes to an agent.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way. And then there's just the other ones where they just goes out and leaves a message, and those go much faster. They would need to verify that with their carrier, because if the carrier sees that and it's not pre-approved, and most of the time they'll shut that down.
So I'll give you an example. We had a situation with one of our customers, healthcare provider, that specific department DID numbers were flagged as potential spam. And so, of course, these are patients getting calls on their cell phones and it says potential spam. And then patients weren't taking the calls. And
Yes.
so to get that fixed was an over the top, it took weeks. And that customer had an expectation. The VP, she picked up and like, why can't you fix this in an hour? They just didn't understand, what was required. So
yes. It's not related to that. That's a different issue, and that's still an issue. Some of the carriers are taking care of that and talking to the other carriers on your behalf to quicken the pace. But right now, it's a very manual effort to get one taken off, and unfortunately, a month or two later, you can see it on the list again. But there are carriers now are starting to recognize that, probably because they get too many tickets themselves, that they're taking that on and working with the carriers who are blocking that to get them off of that do not call list. And there are several do not call lists other than just the nationwide database now, and carriers are using their own, coming up with their own algorithms to determine that. So it gets to be pretty sticky. It's something that an enterprise IT department would rather not work with. So,
Nick,
yeah,
this is Larry.
Larry.
In relation to this, I get a lot of these calls coming in that are from numbers that are not in service, and I would think that attestation would not be cleared on any of those. How is that happening?
Not everything is through attestation yet, through stir shaken. So these fraudulent carriers they'll spoof a number. I get a lot of them that are from who knows where that have a local NPA. So you're not reluctant to answer the call.
They're spoofing local numbers that are out of service, and they seem to be able to identify those and use those for their spoofing data. And, we've been trying to track some of those in some of our efforts. And it's like we get an attestation that's okay. And so the call comes through. And I'm wondering how that can happen. Is it just that stir shaken isn't being honored throughout the whole system yet?
It's not, right? Because, the calling and call lead number are in there as part of that identifier. And I've got an ugly detailed zip header of that. But, it can be there and be fake, but if you're not looking it up or validating it, then it wouldn't do you any good, right? And then how do they get the numbers to start with? If they're, it's been a while since I've looked at a LERG.
They're actually renting them from a company that will sell them a certificate short term, allow them to use it for a few hours.
Yeah, amazing.
It defeats the whole purpose. Yeah, it defeats the whole purpose of stir shaken.
Yeah. And that reminds me. Let me segue into this. I mentioned before there's a way to circumvent it right now, because this is only implemented in the U.S., right, under the North American
right. And these are all foreign activated.
So they're all foreign, right? So what happens is even stateside, right? If you've got a bad actor stateside, they'll have a trunk to some other country, and then when it goes to that other country, they simply place a call that brings it in on an inbound trunk.
It's a VoIP VPN essentially.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So international calls or any calls coming in those international trunks aren't tracked for this. So that's one. I don't know if they've addressed that first. That was an early on find, but you know how it is. They always find a way to circumvent. So we're not there yet.
In the attestation, my carrier is not providing that to the endpoint that I can tell. They're absorbing it at their level rather than being able to look at it in a Poly or a Yay link or something like that. So we can do something with it at our end. Have you seen any movement in that area?
No. And yes, and if you look at the SIP header, you can see the encrypted data in there, but unless you know what the key is, I don't know if it would do you any good.
Okay.
That's probably why they stripped that off. And I got an example of it I can show you.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole right now.
Yeah, go down that rabbit hole of the nuts and bolts. But yes, they usually strip it off because it doesn't do you any good, right? Either that or they don't want to see that there's no attestation level in there. Most of the time, the end user enterprise won't know what to do with it anyway. Yes, you can put it in Wireshark, but that portion may just get ignored.
No, okay.
So that brings up another question. So how can we hold the carriers responsible? You know what I mean? For the things that they have to be doing. Is there a way to do that or?
That's a tricky question.
Like they have to have their whole policy implemented around stir shaken, right? They're obligated to do that.
Yes, they're obligated to do that. But the only thing you can wave in front of them is the contract to go to another carrier that does provide that. But other than that, it would be kind of hard from an enterprise standpoint to force the carrier to do that. And they may have trunks that have that. They may charge higher minutes of use for that. but which I wouldn't think would be all that ethical, but it's possible because there is more data dips, and it does, from a perspective of cost, there is a little higher cost for that, but that's going to be the norm. So we're in that gray area right now, where some are doing it and some are not. It's hard to get them to put the hammer down. If you're a big customer and you have, many minutes of use, then you've got a bigger hammer to pound them with. But if you're just starting out, or your minutes of use are small, then there's really not a lot you can do other than complain to the FCC.
So what are some of the best practices we can do, or we can recommend to our enterprise customers, if you will, around this topic?
Sure.
There's phrases we hear in the industry: know your customer, which the providers should have in place, et cetera. So what are some of the things that you've seen there, Nick?
So I would say that they need to be aware at a high level of what stir shaken is, and have enough basic knowledge to ask their carriers, how do they work with stir shaken? What is your implementation? What happens when a call comes in from another one? Do you check that before you send it to us? Those questions, you don't need to be, you don't need to be a professional nuts and bolts guy down at that level, but a list of questions like that to ask them, the carrier should be able to answer that pretty easily. I know of a rather large carrier that does not apply attestation. I'm not going to tell you who that is, but I was surprised. But I think it's just because they didn't want to go through the trouble of upgrading their SBCs, putting that all in, getting the certificates. You can come up with a million excuses, but at some point, calls are going to be rejected to the point where your customers are going to be impacted beyond the issue of the toll-free number being forwarded without a billing number, right? It's not going to be 1% of the time. It'll be 5% of the time, and then maybe 8% of the time, which is, in a call center, that's way too much. So it's going to take something like that to push some of these providers who do not apply that header when they send the invite out to get that to change.
Got it. Okay. And then I think there's some call analytics programs, right? That providers such as First Orion and Haya, I know, provide to the community. So therefore you can, monitor analytics around specific numbers that you own as the enterprise, right? I would think.
Yes. I'm not familiar with them other than, yes, I know that they're out there. I haven't used any of
them. Okay. So would you recommend anything like that? Because it actually, from what I understand, it actually measures the analytics to specific numbers and then can effectively be a benchmark for flagging that particular number again as a problem number, in these databases because of the sheer volume of outbound calls.
Yeah, I would recommend that. And also there are a few BYOC carriers that have similar analytics where you can tag it and look at the percentage. And also they have their own do not call databases where you can put numbers in or take numbers out instead of going to the national one. So there are several ways of doing it, but an analytics tool like that you can flag at a certain percentage is, it's a great tool to use, especially if you've got a lot of calling.
Sure. So then for a number that, again, you're doing a lot of outbound calling as a contact center. That's part of your, mantra or part of your makeup as an organization, right? And there's a lot of organizations that have that. So what do you do about ensuring that the number is not flagged, and the outbound number is not flagged as a robocall or a spam call, if you will?
Right now, the only thing you can do with that is contact your carrier ahead of time and let them know of this number or numbers that are legitimate, so that they won't put it in their own do not call database. And then most of the big ones, Verizon and AT&T, T-Mobile. They do use their own do not call databases, and all of the algorithms are different. So it may be flagged in one and not in the other. But most of the time, the way enterprise customers are handling it now is after the fact. It happens, and then they have to go through hell to get that number removed, right?
Yeah. So we just had a demo with Verizon Wireless the other day. They're offering several solutions for our customer, but one of them was this exact topic. And what I can share is that Verizon is using a third-party solution, SecureLogix. I'm sure you've run into them.
Yes.
And they are using these, three carriers, First RN, TNS, and Hiya, which have all three are, if you will, third-party vendors that work through the three major mobile carriers, Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T, of course, and effectively can, help keep the numbers that are going out from this particular customer clean, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, if they, they're distributing them amongst several carriers, but still remember, if you look at the spaghetti network that we have, to get from point A to point B, most of the time you have to go into the core networks. They all interconnect at the core, but that is a good way to attempt to keep that distributed. Because you could have a group of numbers that start out on carrier A, and then they go to Verizon, but then Verizon has an agreement with AT&T at the core to use part of their network to traverse those calls. So it's very difficult to put the breadcrumb trail together as to a call left here. We know it went to AT&T, and we know it terminated with T-Mobile on the other end. But what happened in the middle, right? It didn't. It doesn't just stay on the AT&T network most of the time, and the same with all of the big ones, right? They get all. It's a super highway in the middle, and there's a lot of roundabouts, right? So
sure,
it's hard to tell how it got to the other end, but that that's a good solution to mitigate the issue of the calls being blocked because there's too many going through a particular carrier and flagging it with the algorithm that they're using.
Cool. Yeah, I think the mobile network, especially in the last few years, has just become so ingrained in our culture, and such a part of us, right? Was it, I think a full 90% of us own cell phones, right? And use that for work, So again, this whole mobile slant, if you will, on the stir shaking is a big deal.
Yeah. And the term POTS is only used for when you want to cook something now. Most people forget what POTS is.
Well, there you go. So, any final questions for Nick? I'm questioned out here. This is a great topic. It's really just the beginning, and we really have to, again, support our, enterprises with this, particular area. It is problematic. We've seen it.
Yep.
Okay. Well, with that, I'm going to give everybody just over 5 minutes back. And Nick, thank you for taking the time today to present. And
sure.
No, John Clever has a quick question. Go ahead, John. What about pans? What are pots and pans? Haha, got it. Okay, sorry. I was slow there, John. I was slow. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. And again, have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll give you 5 minutes back, everybody. Thanks, and we'll see you on the other side of Thanksgiving.
Pretty
Thanks.
awesome new stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
You're
Good
welcome.
stuff.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.